yeah, here we go. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so let's just stay here then, and then yeah.
I can't hear you guys, or I can't see you guys. I can only hear you. So
you can see us. Cool.
Just
I mean, we
share.
can see. Yeah. So, and we are officially live right now, and we are thrilled to have Rob Sullivan with us today, and it's our third Irish speaker from Ireland.
So yes,
I think. I mean,
yeah,
we are
God,
kind of
shoes
yeah.
to
It's a good. It's a lucky streak for us, right?
Mhm.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Rob. Just quick introduction. Not so quick. So Rob is a machine learning engineer at PitchedIt.
Yep.
And the startup that developed an innovative AI tool that filters out poor quality pitches, enabling the team to spend more time on promising founders. Rob began his career in mechanical engineering, working for leading pharmaceutical and medical device companies. He later transitioned into the tech world, earning a master's degree in data science and a diploma in software development. Rob has published papers in reinforcement learning and frequently speaks on AI topics. Case in point, today. So currently, Rob is working on his book, 50 ChatGPT Projects, where students and AI enthusiasts can unlock the power of artificial intelligence to help improve their daily lives. And I am sure Rob will be kind enough to share some very interesting kind of insights from this book today, hopefully. Yes.
Yeah, Rob, welcome. Yeah, we're really interested in this topic, multimodal LLMs, and I think this is going to be probably our most technical talk to date. Just really looking
I'm
under the
going
hood.
to.
And I know we're gonna see some source code. I know that for sure, and so really excited to have you with us today, and so that we could learn, also our audiences could learn a little bit more about what multimodal LLMs are, large language models, and why we should care about them, and what's happening in that domain. So please take it away.
Yeah, and just
guys,
feel
for
free to
having me.
go. Feel free to go as technical as you wish. We just looking
I'll
forward to your presentation. No pressure, but you're setting the bar today. Rob. You're setting the bar.
Okay, I'll try. Do that. There's no maths in this. I've kept all that out. I try my best to simplify everything as much as possible. If I can't explain something simply, I don't know it. So that's kind of my challenge to myself. And there is some code, but the plus side is if you try this code at home yourself, you'll be able to create an AI that generates PowerPoint presentations for you. So hopefully, I'll be saving you some time before that important meeting. So this is the talk I'm going to give. What are multimodal large language models? I'm going to start off with the theory first. Then after that, I'm going to show that AI presentation generator. And then finally, if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know my favorite part is questions from you guys, because I get to find out what you're working on and maybe see if I can help you. So thanks very much, guys, for introducing me. This is me. I started to try learn how to get machines to do work. Then I've done a master's to figure out how to unlock that data in those machines, and it led to some very interesting research papers. We were trying to get an AI addicted to cocaine that mimicked rat experiments, mice experiments, and we were trying to see how the brain gets addicted. And although it was cocaine, you could see how that could affect be applied to things like social media addiction or gambling. So it's very interesting. But what we discovered, which really fascinated us, was we were actually able to visualize how an AI dreams. Visualizing a thing in reinforcement learning called experience replay. It was an incredible journey. I loved every minute of it, and I was fortunate for it to be published and featured in a scientific journal. But I spent my time in factories as an engineer prior to this, and now I get the opportunity to work with PitchedIt, and so they're trying to help startups get investment, and a lot of startups need investment. So my job was to create a computer vision AI that could help them filter out those applications, so the team could spend more time giving high quality feedback. So I started writing this book called ChatGPT, 50 ChatGPT projects. It was supposed to be for developers, but after talking to a lot of different people, I've decided to add a chapter on how to actually learn to code, and so now this is for everybody. So hopefully there's a link to the book if anybody wants it, and hopefully it'll be in the chat as well. And there's my LinkedIn on the left if you want to reach out. I'm interested in helping make AI and data add value. So if I can do that for you, let me know. So we've seen this explosion in AI recently. Yeah, like AI machines perceive the world through data, and they evolve from these simple little rule-based systems. And I give the analogy of, like, old paper-based system. You're filing. And some companies I've worked with still kind of they won't get away from paper. But we've seen, as the parameters increased, we've seen the AI evolve from being able to classify this and predict that, to understanding language and images to better predict and classify, all the way up to these transformer models, which we went from not simple, but we went from concepts like translating English to another language to everything like ChatGPT. And so the talk that I'm going to give you is we've passed kind of the 10 million mark. So do some of these models. One in particular is about 12 million parameters. And when I say parameters, what I'm talking about are these small little nodes within the hidden layer. And if you picture, walking into a house and there's a switch and you can turn it to change the lighting in the room, and you like it in a particular way, and then more people come through the house and they change it, and over time those little changes that you make, that's the parameters being changed by being influenced by the data. So that's what I mean by parameters. And we as humans, we perceive the world through our organs, our eyes, our hands, our ears, our nose, and we can perform actions or communicate to each other. So this is us. The models that I'm going to start talking about, they evolved. So they started as like a ChatGPT, but they evolved to be able to do things like taking an image and being able to caption it, or being able to describe what it's looking at. So that image to text, and you've seen that type of thing as well for deep fakes, where you've got a an audio a celebrity, and somebody has deep faked that person, and it's an AI fake representation of them. So the specific model that I'm going to talk about are actually called any to any models. And the any to any is the different file types, different types of information we can give them. And we give it a fancy word, we call it modality, but it's just basically, when you hear me saying multimodal or modality, all I'm trying to say is that we can give it a combination of images, text, audio, and video, and it can understand those, and then it can also generate those as well. And there's been an explosion in this side of AI, and you can see in September, the one I've highlighted is the model next GPT that I'm going to talk about. And there's, I suppose, a notable mention, but this graph was generated before March, and that new model came out just in March. So there's models constantly coming out. But this is what we're going to talk about. And this large language model I keep talking about, like, I know a lot of you probably have seen or used ChatGPT, but when I mean large language model, what I'm trying to talk to you, like, here's Llama 2, for example, by Facebook, and how this was trained. This is a bit of a crash course, and if you want the full in-depth understanding of this, there's a link to a previous video I gave. But we take a chunk of the internet, about 10 terabytes of text. We pass it through a lot of these GPUs. In Llama's case, it was 6,000 GPUs for 12 days. It costed $2 million. And then we get this parameters file. So that was those little nodes you saw earlier, or those light switches, if you will. And with about 500 lines of C code, we can get ChatGPT like AI. And what it's really trying to do is predict the next word in a sequence. So I give a famous example of the cat sat on the mat. And that's all this model is trying to do. But to try and predict the next word in a sequence requires so much understanding about the world around that word that these models start to learn a lot of different things. And in the paper as well, they talk about how the AI was able to understand the concept of time, which was fascinating. But what it generates is these kind of low quality web page kind of documents, so some code, some Amazon product information, and some Wikipedia pages. So you have millions of low quality internet documents, and you need to basically get a load of people together in a room and have the AI say things to them, and you need them to then generate hundreds of thousands of questions, high quality questions and answer documents. And the AI will try generate something. It will see the high quality version, and it will try update itself in order to better improve. And if you do this a lot, you will eventually get the quality of T. So when I say, when you see this little large language model, that's what's happening under the hood. It's a huge, massive chunk of the internet that's being handcrafted with a lot of people. So these models, the companies like OpenAI and Facebook, they've done the hard work for us, and now we have these powerful models. And so, what a lot of researchers are doing is they're starting to stitch them together in interesting ways. And the models in particular. So on the left here is this famous one from a paper called "Attention Is All You Need." And if you ever read that paper, it's probably the most driest, boring paper you'll ever read, because the author actually never thought that this would become such a famous model. And before this, we had long-term, short-term memory models, and they were to try help solve a thing called the vanishing gradient descent from recurrence neural networks. So there's a whole family of AI in the backgrounds that could do language, and the transformer came in and just disrupted the whole thing. And it's made up of two things: an encoder and a decoder. And BERT is like the grandfather of ChatGPT, and those type of models are great for classification. And the decoder will generate text, one word at a time, and that's what GPT is. So when you stitch those two guys together, you can do some really interesting things. And with the transformer Attention Is All You Need, they were trying to translate English to French. When Llama came along from Facebook, they'd done some really interesting improvements to the model, simplified it. They introduced a thing called rope instead of positional encoding. And position encoding, tokens, encodings. What all that means is that these words we take words, we turn them into tokens. So if I give you an example of the words, three words: small, smaller, and smallest, we can break that up into three tokens: small, and est, and we can give it some random number. And then what we do is we start to change that number somehow by the data that it sees, by the books that the AI reads. And it becomes this kind of like, I like to think of it like a little mini universe, little planets orbiting around each other. And that positional encoding is like sine, cosine. So it's like how the different words orbit around each other. And we can do some really cool maths with this. We can say, like, if we remove man from king, we'll get queen. Or sorry, if we remove man from king and add woman, we get the position for the word queen. So, as these work towards each other, we can get it to predict the next word. And I give just a quick animation here. This is actually for images, but it does demonstrate how these models learn. They start to orbit around each other depending on what the tasks they're trying to solve. And I don't think we have the opportunity to really look inside the likes of ChatGPT yet, and I hope we do someday. Maybe we'll have to make an AI in order to explain these AIs. But that's what I mean by tokens and embeddings, and that's what's going on here. So you can do really cool things with them. So I talked about this large language model, but here's Next GPT, and it takes all different types of file formats: images, audio. So these are the modalities. It converts it to text. It flags it with a certain type of prompt. Then it passes it into the large language model as if you and me would talk to ChatGPT. The large language model, in this case, it's Vicuna, but it could be, ChatGPT or Gemini. It generates the response or the instructions, and that's what's happening over here. So on the left are these different little neural networks. They're like little brains. There's three of them on the left, and on the right are those transformers. Three of those that I showed you earlier, and these guys are working together to try flag what type of file it is and some sort of convert the image to text that the large language model will understand, and then also provide an instructions for some downstream AI. So in the image generation side of it, it's Stable Diffusion, but that could be DALI. And with the video side of it, it is Zero Scope, but that could be that Sora AI that we've been reading about in the news. And so this is what it's doing. And you can have a conversation with it, talk to it about images, and it will be able to converse with you on that. And remember when I said about predicting the next word in a sequence, if you have images, audio, and video as well as text, you have a lot more data for this AI model to learn and understand. So they become more powerful. So that's the model. This is what it can do. I don't know if you can see this video here. Can you guys see the video?
Yes, we can see the Iron Man.
Yeah, so the user is obviously prompting about a video and asking who it is. So the AI is understanding the video. It's returning images to show its comprehension. It can change that image based on instructions. So you've have this system like ChatGPT that you can talk to, but we could automate it to write a book and illustrate it, and create the podcast for it, and even maybe a short movie trailer for it as well. But this is next GPT. It's fascinating to see it in action. I don't know if you can hear sound from this video, but it's actually generating like a breeze, wind sound.
Yeah, no
I'll
sound. But yeah, we
provide
can
a link to these. Yeah.
Yeah, we can see that there is a sound clip there.
Yeah, so it's like wind blowing off leaves, and then it can generate relaxing music for meditation. It can, you can ask it about that audio. What can you visualize the audio content, and it'll give you an image of somebody relaxing by a bench. So that's what it's doing. In this, somebody gives a sound of a lion. It asks, "What is the sound?" It knows it's a lion. It draws a picture of a lion. It can even generate its own movies of a lion. So dog skateboarding. So this, I feel, is the next stage in what we're going to start seeing. That audio is like a disco beat to the dog dancing. So that's next GPT. An honorable mention I said earlier was any GPT. So I talked about neural networks and transformers and how they're working together to try take all this information from the inputs and then generate all this content on the outputs. Any GPT is doing something kind of interesting. It converts it into those tokens I mentioned earlier, those embedding tokens, and then it passes it through. So it's like it translates everything into one new language that the large language model can understand, and then outputs that. So I believe this is more efficient than the other models, and it allows for less things to go wrong. But if anyone is interested in looking at this further, next GPT and any GPT, they're the two. And this has a bit more audio in it, but you could have the AI talking to you as it's going through different things. It can make like disco beats. It's able to talk to the person about what it's seeing, generate relaxing music, kind of classical.
Yeah, this is so interesting. So basically, it all starts with a user given a text prompt, and then it just kind of unravels from there, depending on how you progress in your conversation with the model, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So yeah, it's comprehending all these different types of file types in order to answer your question, and like the potential for this is limitless in what it can do. To try train one from scratch would be very time consuming and very hardware intensive, money intensive. So a lot of researchers are just using pre-trained models, stitching them together, and that the communication between them is what they're training. As far as I know, any GPT tries to do a train of all, but next GPT doesn't. It only trains those little neural networks and the transformers I spoke about. But I'll move on. But I'll give links to these videos so you can check them out yourself. But they're fascinating models, and it comes always to the question, and this is a really important thing with anything from data science to machine learning, is how we evaluate them. Because I know there's a lot of people here that worry about things like child safety, deep fakes, any fraudulent activity. So how we evaluate these models and ensure that they're working the way we intended and they're safe. At the moment, there's some data sets out there for seeing how well the image is generated versus the real ground truth image, how text and the text caption of the image align, and then the large language model itself, how coherent it is. But when it comes to the multimodal large language models, because they're so new, we kind of have to ask our humans and say, here, do a set of different tasks and score how well you think the AI did on those. So it can be very subjective, but they give a score of 1 to 10, and for next GPT, that was the score they gave. I do hope over time, as these models go into the wild and we can generate a lot of data sets for them, that researchers, hopefully some that are on this watching this video, will come up with ways to better evaluate these. But at the moment, right now, for the multimodal large language models, we need to ask humans to rate their performance. So I suppose the very end of this is just for the theory side, is kind of what does this all mean for us as humans? There's kind of two, I believe there's two kind of forks in the roads that we could go. Well, there are two different scenarios. One is that, like, we launched a satellite into space called Voyager, and we stuck a CD on it, and it had music and sounds and humans saying, "Welcome, we're Earth, humans from Earth," and that's now gone into it's left our solar system, and it's in like deep space. So if there's an ET out there, they'll need a good record player in order they'll need to figure that out. And I would love to see a world where we could maybe stick a chat GPT on one of these and send them off, and maybe uh, that AI will be the thing that meets ET and presents a good case for us. And if you want to know what a world like that looks like, it's a bit sci-fi, but Isaac Asimov's short stories called The Rest of the Robots, they've got a great short story in it called Unintentional Victory. And you should definitely check it out. 3 robots go to Jupiter. Aliens want to destroy all humans, but they've never seen them. They just see these superhero-like robots that are very friendly, very knowledgeable, and can withstand anything that the Jupiter aliens do to them. And they're so good at that the Jupiter aliens are terrified and say, "Get the hell off our planet." And those humans tell them to never come here again because they may crush us. So they represented humans in a good light, and I hope that's a future that we see. But another side of it is that where we have these deep fakes, and we could have a situation where humans will want to integrate AI into a lot of how governments operate and how we do things like law and medicine. And if you want to know what a world like that is like, Ian Banks is a Scottish author. His fantastic stories, the Culture series, and book 1 is called Consider Phoebus. And in that, humans have given over control to AI that now runs their societies. So they want for nothing, and they can go and explore all their different creative sides to themselves. But anybody who doesn't join the AI, so alien races and all, on the outside of that bubble of the culture, the culture goes to war with them. So it's like, join us or be killed. And so it's there's a lot of interesting stories. So if you want to know what the world of that is, check that book out. But I feel like it'll fall somewhere in between. So we will see job losses, just like there wasn't that many blacksmiths after cars were invented and we moved away from horses. We will see, and we are seeing a lot of scams and frauds and extremism. And I'm hoping that there's a lot of people on this call, and there's researchers out there, making it their life's work to try find ways to tackle that. We need a lot more of that. There are some positives, though. It's not all doom and gloom. Like, new inventions will be created. We may have societies, countries out there that, due to the economic or political reasons, we don't know a lot about their culture or stories from stories from their culture. And so maybe this AI can help generate that for us, so we can peek inside what the world is like from someone else's shoes, and support the most vulnerable. I'm hoping there's a world where everybody has at least 3 doctors. That would be an amazing world, because we don't have enough doctors, and I hope AI might be able to help fill that gap. So they're the two extremes, very sci-fi. This is where I think kind of we're heading. I feel like it's somewhere in between, but I'm hoping for the left, and but I feel like we might get the right. If that makes sense.
Yeah, if we don't run
Literally.
into add some glue into your pizza recipe scenario, or eat some rocks, they're good for you.
Yeah, I know, it's like a
I mean, there's
geologist's
just the
daily diet.
anecdotal
Yeah.
stories of folks, conversing with, ChatGPT or whatever they're using, and just getting these results, and they're sharing them gladly. But yeah, so there's a lot of work to be done, I guess, in that area. So Rob, for now, like multimodal GPT, I mean, they understand English mostly, right? So because they've been trained on uh,
Everything gets converted to English and then
yeah,
gets outputted as English. Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
So I'm sure there's people I've spoken to that have said things like there's jailbreaking ways. If we convert this
Mhm,
action to Russian, ask for the response in Chinese, and then translate it back to English, we
mhm,
can get around a lot of safety features. And that's because of earlier where I
mhm,
showed you that room full of data labelers. A lot of these large language models are chunks of the internet, and the solutions that they're giving us, this next word, it's handcrafted by these people and their work and effort. So we don't have enough of them in different languages, and that's why we see a lot of these kind of inconsistencies.
On top of that, you pretty much get a different response depending on the language you are
mhm,
typing in your query. If you're typing in something in Russian, for example, right, you might get about the Russian government. You might get a totally different response versus
Oh,
if you're
yeah.
typing it up in Chinese or in English. And I already used this example. It's just if you're using the Chinese version of ChatGPT, right? And it was by the company. I think it was called Baidu. And so yeah, you were typing in a query about the Chinese government and the restraint just on the information and all sort of thing, and it would just simply shut you down, not going to respond to you, and they just block your account. That's it. That's your conversation with the Chinese chatbot about the Chinese government. Versus when you're typing in the same question in a chatbot trained on
Take this
predominantly
now.
English text. Yeah.
Take this one step further. So imagine they're so embarrassed by what you've done with that prompt that they generate a fake version of you with your voice to everybody on WeChat, where you publicly apologize for what you've done. So they could really take the narrative in that sense. So they're kind of some scary,
mhm,
scenarios. But this is so new that I don't actually know what will happen. We can only project from what we've seen so far, and it's not good. But what I like about it is it's a bit like we've developed cars now, and I can see a lot of researchers out there looking at seatbelts and what's the best design for them, and what other safety features we can do. um, and I'm hoping that it gets to the point like air travel, where it's safer to fly in an airplane than it is to drive in a car, because of all that dedication to safety. Boeing lately, not so much, but I'm talking about before all of that came into it. But that's the theory, and I kind of was going to move on now to the project example, because I want you guys to leave here, and I want you to be able to start generating PowerPoint presentations of whatever you'd like, and hopefully you might share them with me on LinkedIn. But if we go to we need to do all of this now, guys. We need a premium account with ChatGPT. It's about $20 a month. I don't know, maybe some of you already have it. I maxed out as much as I could the free version of ChatGPT until I hit a point where I took the dive, paid 20 quid a month, and I've never looked back. But from that, then you can get an API key that allows us to write code that talks to ChatGPT. We need a way to write our code. I use Visual Studio's VS Code. You can have whatever you want, and you need to have Python installed on your machine. So there's a good YouTube video on how to get started on all that. You can also do this with JavaScript and PHP. I've dabbled with a bit of JavaScript. I haven't with PHP, but I've seen some startup founders who have done that, and it works. You just go to platform openai.com, API keys, and get your key. Don't share it with anyone, and if it accidentally leaks on the web, ChatGPT will detect it and delete it. And so I've made that mistake a few times with GitHub, so just be careful. Pasted it somewhere for later, and then start coding. And like any good craftsman or builder who goes to a construction site, we need our toolbox. And this is kind of all the different tools we're going to use, from interacting with Microsoft to interacting with OpenAI and drawing a user interface so that we can get information from the user. So that's the libraries you'll need at the start. Then we start defining what it is, what a slide is, and you can see here that I tell ChatGPT to talk to DALL-E to generate an image for me, and I then have it here that I'll ask you a question, and so now ChatGPT stops and waits for this question that I'm going to ask it, and that's the prompt. And so when you see the video later of this working, you'll see. You'll see I can enter text in about jellyfish, and it'll generate a presentation on that. There's some cool settings you can try. A lot of people temperature is about how random or creative the AI is let be. So if you want a Spielberg AI, you can pump it all the way up to like 1. If you want like a legal or a data scientist or machine learning engineer, you can put it all the way down. If you want to get real serious. But that's kind of that. You can play with temperature to see the different results. With the DALL-E prompt, then I just say digital art, but it could be anything you want. And then I generate these images, and generate these images, yeah, and then I start putting them together into this like big list for PowerPoint. And so then once I have that, I convert all my images into shapes that PowerPoint will understand, and then I start placing them in a PowerPoint presentation. And then I take the text from ChatGPT and I start pasting it in as bullet points. And then I just save it to my desktop as, I think I call it ChatGPT presentation, but you can call it whatever you want. And then I just create a little box. It's just a text box with a button that says create slides. And what I'm trying to do is get information from you before I go off to ChatGPT and ChatGPT goes off to DALL-E. And this is the cool kind of results you can get. So here's the text box. I just have text already created, so I just paste it in there about jellyfish. I say create slides. A few seconds later, a PowerPoint presentation is created on slides. It looks very random and messy, but what's great is we can go to Microsoft 365 and we can use, I don't know if anyone has tried this, the auto designer feature. So there it is there. So I select the type of design I want.
Yeah.
And it gives me this gorgeous, I try for each slide. It gives me this gorgeous design. And so
Yeah, I use this designer feature in PowerPoint actually, and it's very helpful. It just helps to kind of gives you ideas how to, put your kind of components onto the page. Wow, this is
so this code is quick and dirty. That's where you're
Right.
seeing like
Yeah.
quotes above, and there's 2 bullet points. So you can play around with the code yourself to make it a bit more presentable. And as I go to the actual publish, so this is one of the projects in that 50 projects for ChatGPT book I'm talking about. So I will improve it so that it looks a bit more presentable. But the idea is that if you have to pitch to a customer or a client and you're looking for ideas, you can get this to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And these multimodals, as we start to see them develop, we'll start to see them connected into other tools that we use. And I tried to build for example, a tax assistant, and there's a video on that as well if you want to see. and I'm trying to get this AI to help you to pay your taxes.
Oh man.
So there's some interesting stuff that can do. If I was to plug that into Irish government's tax, a kind of very old government system, I'm sure it'll be very
Yeah.
useful to a lot of accountants. So there's
Mhm.
some really those projects individually will help teach you about AI. But when you stitch them together, you get some very interesting results. So, but that's the AI presentation. Um, we're at the very end. If you're still awake, thank you so much. It's been fantastic. Here are some references if you're interested to dive a bit deeper. But now we kind of get on to the best part, which is questions from you. And there's a link again if you want the book. And if you need any help from me, there's my link to LinkedIn. And I don't know about you, but I'm hoping for that Voyager AI on a satellite into deep space scenario versus the other one. That's
Yeah,
it.
I
Yes.
just yeah, I just wonder if we did have ChatGPT on there in deep space, how it would interact with another life forms, because it only knows human language, right?
But
So
imagine they start feeding it information about them in their way.
yeah, so if
By
it
the design of this model, it would have to try adapt to predict the next the next token
yeah, but
in the
the thing is
sequence.
that, Rob, have you seen this movie Arrival?
Oh yeah, yeah. I love that film. Yeah.
This is like one of my favorite movies in the very, very long time. It completely blew my mind. And the thing is that the concept of the language there is a completely different one. So that's what I'm saying, right? So it's interesting that the human was able to decipher, this concept, which completely changes your entire existence. I mean, your concept of time. I'm giving spoilers, but I don't
Mm.
care. I mean, it's such a great
But I
movie.
think,
I
do
saw
you know
it
what?
3 times. It's just the language itself is actually transforms your understanding of time. So what I'm saying is that there might be other languages out there, other systems of thought.
Do you know what's
Uh,
cool to know is
yeah.
that we don't need to meet aliens to see that type of experience.
Mm,
I don't know if there's anybody here on this that speaks Chinese, but I'm
mm,
told that the concept of time in Chinese is different to the way we understand time in English. And so apparently Chinese poetry is pretty wild because they don't have this concept of time that we're familiar with. So if you have to learn Mandarin, you would have to change the way you think in order to understand that concept of time. And I
fascinating.
like to think that these large language models could potentially do that. But
Hmm.
this is very sci-fi. I'm not sure, if they start drawing circles, will the image part of next GPT or any GPT be able to understand that and translate it into something
Yeah, but
it
if you,
gets?
yeah, I mean, as you're showing as your presentation, when like a machine learning, we're trying to kind of model, the neural networks after the human brain, right? So if a human is able to decipher, I mean, to grapple with these concepts, then theoretically, right, the neural network should be able to do that as well.
Hmm.
Kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm extrapolating too much, but I mean,
No,
this
it's
is,
like Jeffrey Hinton. He's like
uh,
the godfather, I suppose, of deep learning. And his
yeah.
whole career, he's just trying to figure out, like,
Hmm.
does the human brain do back propagation? So, in calculus, it's the chain rule. Does it do that? And he spent like a lot of the things we've seen. Even a lot of his former students are now, head of OpenAI and other companies, and other famous researchers. They've all tried to do that with the human brain. But if another language was to come into it, I would like to think that it could, like the transformer model was designed as a translator model within Google for English to French. So I like to think it could do that, just with enough data.
Yeah, yeah. Neo is totally like photobombing our presentation right now. I guess we can get rid of him, but yeah, I mean that slide was just to show. I guess, I mean, Matrix is also one of my favorite movies. It's the movie of my youth, so to speak. It changed so many perspectives of life.
Sure.
I don't
A
know
little
how
plug.
many times I've seen it. Like I've seen it in the movie theater like 3 times in the
There's a really
1999.
cool film, Dark City, and as far as I know, they were inspired. The people who created the Matrix were inspired by that. So much so that some of the scenes in the movie Dark City
Mhm.
are in the Matrix, the rooftops, for example.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that is another concept of memories and what it is to be human, and it's fascinating. There was no AI in that, but maybe there
That's
was
the
another
one
language.
1998, right?
Yeah, it's very old. Yeah, yeah.
It's like 1 year, 1998. Yeah, that's 1 year before the Matrix came out. Matrix came out in 1999.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they use the same
Yeah,
sets.
this
It's
is,
crazy.
looks so cool. I've never watched that movie, by the way. I have to find this. It looks
Oh,
very
it's
cool.
it's really really good.
Can I quickly hijack? Like, I'm gonna ask one question because we have a question from Tim
Oh, of
Murphy
course.
waiting.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah.
I remember you said you don't want to go in too deep and technical, and I'll have to kind of just ruin that.
Sure.
So while preparing for our discussion today, I read a few things on top of whatever I've read so far, and in the context of multimodal LLMs versus LLMs, which are just text-based LLMs, right? When we're talking about data processing and data generation, can you kind of give us a short breakdown on transduction versus transformation? Because I know transduction is when you're trying to kind of
Oh,
transfer meaning between the modes.
picture helps solve that. Yeah. So if you let me go back here.
Yeah, because that's really interesting. Because the way when you're operating with the multimodal model, uh, it's audio, it's everything, image, text, and you have to kind of work in between
So somebody
these.
has done the hard work for us, and so ImageBind by Meta, by Facebook, can take images, audio, and video and create those tokens, those encodings that I spoke about earlier. And so what they do is they have these neural networks that the authors of this paper trained, um, and they also created a labeled data set. So this neural network will output from the image. It will caption the image, so to speak, and it'll also add a little label to say that this is an image, and it will send that then as a text prompt then to this large language model. So that's what's happening on that side. It's just generating the text for that image, and if you can imagine, just captioning the image, and that then is later used for the projection part. So this is the large language model coming out. So if I go back to the code I was writing for us, where I say summarize the following text to DALI image generation prompt. So that's kind of what it will be outputted, if that makes sense. Again, with a tag to say that it's an image, or that's the image generator needs to be used, or the audio generator needs to be used. That's the difference between the two. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's just interesting the way kind of it works, right, on that level when you go down to this technical level and all those details. It's very fascinating because with transformation, it's basically you just, as the word says, right, you're transforming this text into a different type of text, like just a sort of just, I don't know, few pages of text into a short bullet points, right? But you're still working with text versus when you're dealing with transduction, you are working essentially, you just need to extract the meaning and put it into from text to image or text to audio and there and back again. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
interesting.
Yeah, exactly. You're
How do you
creating the
extract
text,
the
the
meaning
instruction,
and
and
essentially the idea of whatever it is, and how the LLM understands that, has the concept of it? And it's just when you go down this level, it's just sort of mind blowing to
the
me.
meaning side of it is a great question to ask, but it delves into this pre-training stage, fine-tuning stage stuff where all we do is try get this model to predict the next word, or the next image, or the next YouTube, the next frame in the YouTube video, and then we have some handcrafted. What's great, I suppose, is that we can have millions of low quality, but we only need a couple of thousand high quality responses, and we have this model update its weights or its parameters that I spoke about. Um, it does a thing called chain rule in calculus, but we call it back propagation, and we're sending the error back, and we're updating all the weights to try minimize that error. and that's kind of what's going on, just to predict the next word. There's some interesting things happening as the information flows through the model. Like each one of these is doing something different. Like softmax is trying to do like a gradient sampling of the probabilities of the different words it should choose. Linear is just that. Is it a cat? Is it a dog type of model?
And that's what makes it so fascinating. Is just to begin with, nobody knows really. The machine learning engineers and just researchers, they don't really know how these systems work, but they sometimes don't even know what results this system will, like what the output's going to be. And a lot of times they are surprised while they are doing their research and they're doing their work. They're like, we didn't expect that would be the output.
Yeah, because you can't. Yeah, I don't think you can reverse engineer that. It's kind of, there is no
that's the exciting.
Yeah.
That's what the exciting field of explainable AI is about. I was fortunate enough to have a supervisor for my master's thesis called Dr. Luca Longo. And every year he runs the Explainable AI conference. I think the year I went, it was in Lisbon in Portugal. And I got to meet a lot of different researchers, all trying to ask that question: what is happening under the hood of these AI, and can I visualize it? Can I get it to explain itself, and can I get it to explain itself to the user? And there's a lot of fantastic different research projects going on, and my one was on trying to see how the brain gets addicted to drugs in a simulation. But we ended up being able to explain what it was dreaming about to make decisions, because we were able to visualize it. So I'm sure there's a whole research field. I don't know any researchers off the top of my head, but that are looking at large language models, and they're trying to explain each one of these gaps. And I hope they make a lot of progress on it, because just other than the safety features we can build in, it's fascinating to learn, to see what these things are learning. Because remember, the next word in the sequence has to know a lot about the world. I gave examples of like famous celebrities. If you wanted to predict Elon Musk, it has to know like who Elon Musk is, what companies he's associated with, what technologies, what he's been talking about on Twitter lately, and his fights with Jan LeCun. But it needs to know about all those things in order to predict Elon Musk. So they're very fascinating models.
It's fascinating, and it's a good sign that it's been a lot more, again, in the public consciousness. And when it comes to AI regulation, right, a lot more regulators and legislators are they are paying attention, not to the extent that I wanted to. That it's just everything has been moving such a slow pace.
It's
unfortunately,
such a hard problem. Like
I know, but at least kind of it's being brought up more and more. That's what I'm trying to say. And the EU AI that just finally passed.
Dare I say it? I feel sorry and have sympathy for politicians, but these people have to make these hard decisions. And I like what you said with the AI regulations that are coming in. I think is fascinating. I know there's a whole group out there that don't think AI regulations should be there because they'll stifle innovation, but I don't really think that's true. I think it helps innovation, and it definitely helps make some of the things we invent a lot safer. Like airplanes, regulation is the reason why airplanes are safe. So yeah, I don't know how. I think it should. The conversation when it comes to legislation and all should be about, I believe, data and data governance. I think these models will change so much. I feel like law will always play. We'll have to try play catch up to AI changes, but the data doesn't really change. Like we only have so much text out there. Eventually, these large language models are going to eat up all of that text to learn, and we'll hit a point where we'll actually need image and audio and video to supplement more data, because these things would be so hungry for it. But the data, I don't think will change that much. So I think that's what we should focus on.
They'll start
I'm pretty
training. They'll start synthesizing. It will be synthetic data sets. They'll be training themselves on this synthetic data when
Oh,
we run out of intranet. I mean, intranet is all we have right now. But I
guys,
Yeah,
guess
we're
the
with these
already
AlphaGo.
capabilities,
almost out. We're already
yeah,
almost out of the human generated data. So
yes.
back to our matrix analogy,
Mhm,
how
mhm.
about we'll all be in those pods and the machines will just make us create
And
human
yeah,
generated
well,
data. Somebody will be singing, somebody will be typing, somebody will be drawing, and that's the
mhm,
information the AI will be using
mhm.
to feed itself. How about that? So let's go to the questions. And we
Eating
have,
Of course, yeah.
lunch. I think we
yeah,
have a couple of questions. We
yeah.
have a question from Tim. I don't know if I can kind of read it. Yeah, Tim was asking if Rob, you could comment on differences in the results. If you like continue asking the same question, LLM the same question multiple times, kind of repeating itself, whether there is any impact on the output. If you
Yeah,
observe.
these are like at the foundation
That's
of
it.
all this. These are statistical probabilistic models. So if you keep asking it to, say pineapple, eventually it may start leaking some of its training data. And I know there's probably people right now trying to play catch up to that and do those handcrafted solutions to capture it. So I think there was an update with ChatGPT now. If you try ask it to do these endless loops, it'll stop and say, no, I don't want to do that. But yeah, so
You're
for
torturing me.
multimodal, God knows what the video output will be. I feel like
Oh.
that's going to be very scary. So I'll be interested to find out. Maybe we'll start seeing if anybody has recorded video footage on our webcams, or something.
Did you? I think you probably saw that there was like this type of jailbreak, and the researchers tried to
Mhm,
jailbreak ChatGPT, I believe, right? And they
mhm.
kind of asked it to repeat the same word over and over again, and until the sort of the
Started
system
cursing at
broke,
them.
and not even cursing, but it leaked some personally identifiable information, PII, a lot of kind of some of the stuff that the the AI system itself was trained on,
Yeah.
and that was kind of they shut it down.
Mm.
They did some tinkering, and you can't use that prompt. I
I,
tried.
I'm
You
not.
can't
I'm
use
not
it anymore.
sure.
But yeah,
I'm not sure if I put it on LinkedIn. I must actually dig out that post. But I was helping a startup put AI into email, to obviously helps you summarize and drill down into documents and long email chains and quickly reply to those nuisance emails. So I was putting AI into email, and I was hitting a bump with this bit of code. And like any good programmer now, I'm sure throws it into ChatGPT and asks, what do I do here? And I think the variable I was using was called last message, like camel case.
Ah,
And next minute it starts telling me about this surgeon. And I was like information about this surgeon. And I was like, this isn't code. Oh my God. And a quick Google, I was like, oh, this person is actually real, so yeah, even though I didn't ask it
you
to
need
like
to find that
repeat.
post. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think it's on my LinkedIn, but I didn't need to ask it to repeat words, or I simply was just trying to solve a coding problem. And next minute I was getting personal information about a
Yeah.
surgeon, so it's it's very
interesting.
scary.
Okay. So that's a known issue. Yeah, and we have another question actually. Carrie's asking. I mean, we know that sometimes LLMs, ChatGPT can forget about things. I mean, I think that's also kind of a known issue. But Carrie's actually asking. She's trying to understand how LLMs can be taught to forget.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So
So
it's
if
not
you
like a
remember,
side product of of LLMs just forgetting stuff sometimes, but that's actually intentionally make them do that.
hmm, it is an area of research. Where you can do that is, so earlier when I was talking about the pre-training stage where you get a chunk of the internet, and then the fine-tuning stage where we handcraft solutions. That's an example. So before ChatGPT got its safety features, if I asked it to tell me about napalm, how to make napalm
Mhm.
in my house, it would describe in detail how to do it. So
Yeah.
somebody created a handcrafted solution to restrict people from doing that. And so then you see these funny kind of jailbreaks where people say, well, pretend to be my grandma in my kitchen and now tell me how to make napalm, and then it will get around those handcrafted safety features. But that's how you do it. In the fine-tuning stage, you create the response you want and you present it in the fine-tuning stage to the large language model and let it try predict the next word based on this new handcrafted solution you gave it. And then
So technically that would be possible, for example, because what Carrie is referring to, it's data protection, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
there's the
GDPR,
GDPR, right?
right
Right
to
to
be
forget,
forgotten. Yeah.
right to be forgotten. And so there's the recent case where the person just pretty much asked ChatGPT about themselves. We all
Mhm.
know who that person is, and ChatGPT gave out the wrong information, wrong date of birth, right? And the person requested OpenAI to correct or correct that information, remove that information. Is there a technical way to remove that
Oh
specific
yeah.
person's information
Mm-hmm.
from
From the
what
training
I
data
would have,
set.
yeah, you
from
would
the
need,
data
Yeah.
set? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to supervised machine learning, it's all about the ground truth. So what would probably end up happening is you don't want anybody to have your data, but you would actually have to probably share your data with some repository, some database somewhere, and then have that as the ground truth. So if these models try to output text, they'll do a check of that first, and then there'll be a lot of development around how to do that efficiently. Just like we have different databases for different types of information retrieval. But yeah, you would have to give your data up to someone, and then have the AI check that, and
Yeah.
maybe there's some automated handcraft solution there that it does,
Yes.
reinforcement.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think
because
there is. We just had Patricia Thane from Private AI this month, actually, in the beginning of the
Yeah,
month. Yeah, she is the CEO of this company. They actually do precisely that. That's their product. They try to help the companies. First of all, you have to even to identifying PI, personally identifiable information, is a really tricky thing. She showed us it can be comprised of so many different things, right? And it's kind of challenging to even parse through all of this because it's different types of data. And then once you have identified that, solve problem number one, then you have to like somehow remove it from the data set, which is also not, I think, a trivial thing, but they're working on providing a solution for that. So I think, I don't know if that answers Carrie's question. I think it's possible, and people are looking into that as we speak. So
like a lot of people that I would talk to don't want to give their data out to anyone. If
mhm.
those little pop-up windows come up about cookies, they're rejecting. But
That's me.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
go through
but
all
I don't
this
know about
damn
you.
3 dozen cookies, but it's actually so annoying.
But when I'm sick, I want my doctor to have every bit of information about me, from blood pressure to how many times I sneezed. I overshare that information because I'm hoping they have a solution to it. So,
Mhm.
when it comes to things about us, say for health reasons, sharing our information, I don't think is an issue. And so if you're like that startup, if you're sharing your information with a repository who's trying to protect you, then I think that's a good thing. I don't see why there'd be a lot of resistance to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, but I think that people just have to understand a bit more, what they're giving up when they're signing up for certain, products or access to some
Mm.
services that they need. And yeah, I guess it should be up to every single person to decide what the trade-offs are. But I think it requires some, education, and people, I guess, will start coming up to speed even more and more these days, especially the younger generation, because this is their, I mean, this is going to be their world, right?
Of
So
course, yeah.
yeah.
It's like there's an old article, I think it's like a newspaper clipping, and it's a lot of maths teachers out with pickets, and they're saying like no to calculators. It will make kids terrible at maths. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I've worked with engineers that would sit in a meeting room and they could laugh across the room rhyming off their log tables because I wouldn't know that. But I have log tables on my calculator if I want,
Yeah.
but we still do the same job, and that calculator helps me to do my job a bit better.
Mhm.
And I feel like these large language models they're very I spoke about the money and the computation required to get these large language models, but there's this huge carbon element to it as
Different.
well. They're very carbon intensive. So,
Very.
should we train these models if they're going to destroy the environment? I like to think that they'll have a net value where we can use them to help solve a lot of environmental issues. So, it's I feel like over time these things will get better.
I think by the time they'll learn how to solve the environmental issues, we'll have no environment to save. At this
Hopefully not.
rate.
Yeah, but the carbon footprint is actually mind-blowing. I mean, I just saw some graphs and statistics on how much electricity is required, to run this tech, and it's kind of very impressive when you actually see it.
Ireland is a
like
great
really
example
very-
of that because we have the advantage of a colder climate, and obviously thermodynamics, these data centers heat up a lot. So
Oh yes.
we can have these heating cooling aisles, and we can extract all that. Like in Amazon in Dublin, their data centers powering our local government building, a university, and I think a public library. The heating part of that. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with these. These are solvable problems, but yeah, it'll take a lot of investment and a lot of political will to do, I think.
Exactly. That's why I'm so pessimistic about it, because so far, if the history taught us anything, the big tech companies, that's pretty much the only thing they're worried about is the profits. And when it comes to human rights and environmental issues, it kind of everything takes the back seat. So I'm a pessimistic optimist, I would say. It's just, I don't know. I really hope we'll get there and we'll learn from our mistakes. But
the Brussels
I
effect
really
helping us, I think, because with a lot of
Brussels effect.
yeah, I think so. Like with a
Yeah.
lot of the legislation put through in Europe, I
I
feel like
I
that has
just
a knock-on effect.
put up the slides back again. Alisa, did you want to share something, the thing, or you just kind of you decided to leave poor old Neo alone this time?
Well, yeah, we usually end, with a huge thank you. And Rob, thank you so much for.
I see it's already dark where you are. It's
joining us
gotten much darker.
Guys, thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
yeah,
I've had a lot of
yeah,
fun,
especially with the time
and
difference.
really good question.
Yeah, we really appreciate you kind of tuning in, and and I just wanted to let our audiences know that our next talk will be in early June, and I think we're going to be discussing AI in healthcare.
You think? Yes.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, so I think this is also a very interesting subject, and I think it's very relevant to many people. It's Rob, you just said, I'll be willing to share. For example, you as a consumer or like a patient, you will be willing to sharing certain data, with your healthcare practitioners and how they're going to be using the data and how it's going to be safeguarded. So I hope we'll be able to
exactly.
discuss these things.
And the fascinating kind of intersection, right? Just totally just starting a new topic here, but the fascinating thing about AI in healthcare, right? The amount of data, and we're constantly talking about the quality of data, but the diversity of that data will directly influence kind of the outcome and kind of just directly change a person's life in a sense,
That gets me excited. Large language models in healthcare, with the amount of data we have with healthcare, it would be an incredible thing to watch and to use, because as I said earlier, we don't have enough doctors, and the doctors we do have, we've stretched them very thin. We don't pay them as well as they should be paid, and they work crazy hours. And I do like to think that if we can get these AIs with healthcare data, there could be a future where everybody has 3 doctors, and I can't wait for that.
Yeah, we'll see. I think our next speaker is also from the not from Ireland, I think, but from Europe.
The speaker after that is we're coming back to Ireland.
Yeah. I mean, you're saying Brussels effect, and I think we're feeling that because I think we have more and more speakers from across the pond, because I mean, you guys are really like in the deep trenches with everything.
That's what we call international cooperation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Somebody needs to do it.
so thank you
thank you so
again
much,
for
Rob.
sharing. Yeah,
No
for
problem,
sharing
guys.
the
I've had a
expertise.
lot of fun. Thanks very much, and I'll definitely can't wait for this next talk as well. I'll be tuning in. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks for your questions. Thank you for just being with us for however long, and we'll see you next time.